Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is a special call meeting of the Shelby County Board of Education. Tito Langston, please call the roll. I'm just reading the script.
Commissioner McKissick,
Here.
Commissioner Hugh Garcia,
Here.
Commissioner Woods, Commissioner Love, Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Calvo,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Williams. We have 7 commissioners present.
Board Chair Green,
Board
present.
Chair Green.
I'm present.
We have 7 commissioners present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss and get an update on the restructure plan. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Commissioner Love is present. Commissioner Woods is also present. That would be 9. We're now on to public comment. In accordance with the state statute, the board shall reserve a period for public comment during business and special call meetings. Only those members of the public who signed up prior to this meeting shall be allowed to speak. A sign-up sheet was available 30 minutes prior to this meeting. Speakers, please state your name, organization you're representing, if any, and the subject of your comment before you proceed. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs that concern them. Please refrain from using the name of personnel or persons connected with the school system when lodging a complaint. Today we have 7 speakers and 3 minutes each. I will call your names in the order that they appear on the sign-up sheet. Barbara Beloach, Jarvis Cook, John Bush, Camario Brown, Lias Marable, Danette Stokes, and Nordstrom. Did I get it right? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, work with me. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Barbara Beloach. I am currently a parent liaison for Memphis-Shelby County Schools. My address is 3118 Wade Street, 38128. This is my 18th year in Memphis-Shelby County Schools. I started in 2006 as a parent counselor and was housed in room 102 at the board. We advocated for our job title to be changed because we did not do the same work as the school-based parent counselors. I was one of the first parent liaisons in the district back in 2006. In 2008, our job title was changed to district parent liaisons, but the job description that is documented in HR did not change, as we do not do the same work as the school-based family engagement specialists. I admit there have been changes in our department as new superintendents have come and gone. Parent liaisons have come and gone also. Our locations changed, but the work was still going forward. We stand strong in this district, as you can ask anyone in this room. We are currently housed in the Parent Welcome Center, which is located directly behind the board, as we welcome parents to come and speak to each one of us whenever they have a concern in the district that they can be addressed at the school level. Over the years, we've worked to enhance this position and added other duties to the job description to make it better to meet the needs of the parents, students, and district personnel. As a parent liaison, we coordinate, document, and resolve parent and constituent concerns daily. We provide impartial and confidential consultation to parents who are aggrieved or concerned about an issue with Memphis-Shelby County Schools. We are knowledgeable of what leads to conflict, the nature and the methods of the resolutions. We remain independent, neutral, and impartial and exercise good judgment with parent concerns. We provide professional development for administrators, teachers, family specialists to provide best practices to increase and sustain parent involvement in the schools. We coach administrators on how to improve customer service within their school. We assist school personnel and parents in interpreting and adhering to the MSC school policy to meet district policy to meet the needs of our children. We are the voice of and for so many parents who feel they do not have a voice in their child's school. Here I am today standing before you with yet another new superintendent, and the work as district parent liaison has ceased. We have been realigned as family engagement specialists with our salary being cut in half, even more. I am asking today for the board to not eliminate these positions. I wish this position was around when my children were in school. Thank you.
My name is Jarvis Cook, and I am an employee with the Memphis-Shelby County School District, working human resources. Greetings, esteemed board members and Superintendent Fagans. I begin by expressing deep appreciation for the invaluable contributions each of you has made to our respected school district. As an employee invested in the welfare of our district, I seek insight into the strategies planned by the board and superintendent to address the current culture and morale challenges within our district. It is evident that there is a growing sense of discontent among our colleagues, and it is imperative for us all to work together towards fostering a positive and harmonious work environment. Transparency is a term frequently used, yet regrettably, its practice seems elusive in our daily operations. External sources such as social media, bloggers, and news outlets, and every news outlet has a different story, often seem to be more informed about district matters than the dedicated individuals working within these walls. This lack of information flow creates uncertainty and frustration among employees, hindering their ability to plan for their future and that of their families. It is essential that we uphold true transparency by providing timely updates to our staff, empowering them to make informed decisions. Let us collectively dispel the misguided notion that human resources and other central office employees are not committed to their roles. It is absurd thinking and disrespectful to the men and women that devote their time and talents daily to this district. That's like saying teachers aren't teaching because 78% of our students can't read proficiently. That is not a fair statement. I am not concerned about what happened 2 years ago. Let's deal with what's currently happening right now. Many of our colleagues worked until 10 p.m. this past Friday over the weekend to provide a report to the superintendent. Although we may not be in the classroom, our work is equally important. Every individual within our organization, from educators to support staff, play a crucial part in the success of our students and the district as a whole. Respect should be mutual and extend to all levels and roles within our organization. Regretfully, we are witnessing the departure of valuable team members due to the absence of respect and transparency in our interactions. The responsibility lies within each of us present to either unite as one cohesive unit or allow personal agendas to perpetuate our current state of stagnation. Embracing change while understanding its intricacies is key to fostering growth and progress within our district. I am not an adversary to change, but I do know you can't change what you haven't taken time to understand. Have a good day.
Good afternoon, colleagues, our distinguished board, Dr. Fagans. My name is Sean Bush. My address is 2527 Old Dutch Way, Memphis, Tennessee 38133. I'm here to represent the Principals Association, my colleagues behind me, high school principals, elementary principals, representing different parts of the city. So, I'm going to share with you a very strong message that I think we all need to adhere to, and in the end, you'll understand why. As a principal in this district, I support its success. As the vice president of the Principals Association, I have the opportunity to meet with Dr. Fagans bi-weekly, where the concerns and proposed solutions of administrators throughout the district are heard. As next year's president of this association, this work will continue with added voices of additional principals and assistant principals. As a school leader, I am well aware of what's needed in schools, and I know the systems within the district that are needed to support that work. Trying to determine that balance is extremely challenging. As professionals, we understand that change occurs. We also know that it can be difficult, and even at the school level, we feel and understand the effects that it has had on our fellow colleagues. I stand here to encourage us all to do what the association has done with Dr. Fagans: listen and develop solutions. I'm gonna say that again. Listen and develop solutions. We want to have what's best for our district and schools to occur, right, while everyone feels heard, considered, and treated in a fair manner. We believe that there is so much to be considered as these changes occur: the impact on a person's livelihood, the measure of needed change in schools that will actually occur, and an understanding of the district level support for schools, ensuring that schools continue to receive support around the changing landscape of education. Many of us have shared with one another that we are praying for our district. We have gone through a lot in the past few years that has taken our focus away from the main thing: children and teaching and learning. Let's get back in focus and make sure we get the picture right. I'm gonna read that last part again because I don't think y'all heard me. We have gone through a lot in the past few years that has taken our focus away from the main thing. The main thing is children and teaching and learning. Let's get back in focus and make sure we get the picture right this time. That's all I have, and I hope that you all heard me. Thank you.
Mario Brown. I'm going to be speaking about restructuring. In a letter I have written addressed to all members of this Memphis-Shelby County Schools Board, I requested that you ask the superintendent to halt these proceedings and present a comprehensive transformation plan that would detail key components like how the proposed restructuring will affect each department, the plan for maintaining support to schools and families, and the timeline for when these changes will take effect, and how all of this will be communicated with internal and external stakeholders. I made a mistake. I used the word ask. As duly elected members of this board, you do not ask, you direct. And with that, I would like to direct your attention to the employees seated in front of you. Many of these people and hundreds of others are facing a life-changing decision within the next 2 weeks. As I detailed in my letter, some of these people are being given 72 hours to decide if they will accept a position paying as much as 60% less than their current salary. It was shared yesterday that only 363 offers have been extended, with 171 staff members accepting the positions offered. That's a fill rate of 47%, with 193 professionals being forced out of the district to seek a livable wage, and that's mostly due to the culture that is being created, a culture where dedicated educators are now being treated as if they are expendable and undervalued. As of today, June 11th, there are hundreds of employees who have yet to be given notice that their position will be eliminated and offered a position that is in no way comparable. I asked this board and the listening audience to imagine the impact of being fired or being offered a position that requires you to accept up to a 60% reduction in pay. when the board's only employee arrives with the 5% cost of living increase in his contract? I mean, imagine the conversation a husband or a wife has to have with their spouse, a single mom or dad has to have with their children. You are asking people to adjust their lives by $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in 2 weeks' notice. That is inhumane and borderline lunatic. Even more so because it does not have to happen. There is no budget shortfall. There is no fiscally motivated reason for why this has to happen. Let's talk budget. Recommendations were made to this board in the March 9th retreat, where leaders have made their final recommendations on cuts that will be made to balance the budget. Since then, our superintendent has made different and additional cuts, demoted people of positions. Revenues projected in that March retreat were $1.206 billion. And the budget book released this past weekend projects revenues at $1.27 billion. That is a $66 million increase in revenues, and you can find that information on page 35 of your budget book. 3 minutes was all that was allotted. I had a few more things to say, but I would just say to the board and the superintendent that you seriously take a look, reconsider this position. Look out for these people, give it a year. Let's make it happen.
My name is Liz Marable. My address is 6263 Poplar Avenue. I began teaching mathematics in this district in 1983, a position I still hold today. I'm a graduate of Ridgeway Junior High and Ridgeway High School, so I've seen this district change over the past 40 years, some for good, some for bad. If we're going to save our city, I have said this many times here in this same microphone, we must save our children. I'm here to thank you for taking on the task of transformation and restructure. It is not an easy task, nor is it a task that everyone's going to be happy with. We are truly sorry for the situations that may occur that affect your livelihoods. I don't think that's anyone's intent, and hopefully we can fix some of those situations. But I also say that I'm excited about transformational leadership at central office and the administrators of our local schools and our classrooms, but mostly for our students. It is commonly said that you cannot fix a problem until you admit there is one. I appreciate you, Dr. Fagans, and this Board of Education for stating publicly where we are and how we need to move to where we want to be. Educators know that we need help in our buildings. It does take all of us. We have to make bold steps to bridge the gaps. We can no longer leave our school buildings without certified teachers and with placeholders. We must provide our kids with the best teachers, the best facilities, and the best opportunities. Those things should not be determined by a child's zip code. We constantly say that we are about the children. I feel like we're about to really be about the children. Teachers remain in the classroom. We all know this because we love children and are determined to make a difference every day in their lives. I ask, just as Principal Bush asked, that all of us remember why we got into education, and that we somehow find a way to come together to serve the 110,000 students that deserve the very best of us. We talk about leaving a legacy. I'm not worried about leaving a legacy. I want our children to have a legacy. I want them to be alive. I want them to have a future. I don't want our children to continue to be in poverty. Yes, we have to make drastic changes. Yes, it's going to hurt some of us. But I ask and I pray that we come together to save our children and to save our city.
Good evening. My name is Danette Stokes, 6263 Poplar Avenue, Suite 1001. I am a 24-year veteran educator, and I serve as the president of the United Education Association. First of all, thank you, Dr. Fagans, for your transparency and for your leadership during this season. This is indeed a tough season, so we thank you for being strong enough to handle the various situations that are coming at you. Thank you for changing the narrative of our district and moving us into a place of transparency, a place where our students will have the great things that they deserve, the resources that they need inside of the classrooms. Thank you for those biweekly meetings that we have. Those conversations are sometimes tough conversations, but I thank you for responding by showing educators and the people in this district that you are here for our students. And as you always said, on the other side is where we will see the victory. So I thank you for expressing your strategic vision of prioritizing the needs of Memphis-Shelby County School students by reallocating resources to ensure a stronger focus on classroom instruction. The United Education Association looks forward to continued feedback opportunities as you contemplate decisions allowed within district policy and state law that provide the best possible educational experience for our students, while also impacting the working conditions of our district. So again, thank you. We look forward to our continued collaboration, and we're praying for our district. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Noah Nordstrom. I live at 6220 Forest Grove Drive, and I'm a Spanish teacher at the high school level here at MSCS. And first of all, I just want to thank the board and Dr. Fagans for continuing to prioritize the needs of our teachers and our students. And I challenge us to continue to improve conditions for all of us who work in our schools and for all the students who attend our schools. One of the things I specifically want to thank you is for the raise in teacher pay. I mean, low pay is a problem that myself and that almost all teachers I know struggle with. Most teachers I know now have 2 jobs, which isn't how it's always been. I have a lot of teacher friends who don't go out anymore because they're trying to save so much money because they're trying to make ends meet. I myself just experienced a car wreck, and I'm struggling to get new transportation because I too live paycheck to paycheck as a teacher in MSCS. So I want to thank you for making that one of the first priorities, is raising teacher pay, and I want to challenge us to continue as inflation rises to keep up with that commitment. And I also just want to thank you for the prioritization of filling needs in our schools. I can't tell you how much that means to me as a teacher. I mean, I've had students come up to me and ask to join my Spanish class because they don't have a teacher in their Spanish class. And I don't think that's a situation that our students should be facing, going to school an entire year without a teacher. So thank you for prioritizing filling those positions, and I want to challenge us to continue doing that until there are no more vacancies. So thank you again, and I know it's going to take time to fix a lot of these long-term problems. There's a lot of frustrations that still need to be worked through, and I just challenge us to continue working together to do that. Thanks.
Board members, I have received calls, as most of you, from employees who have been notified of offers of job changes, position elimination, and job terminations. I am concerned on a number of levels about how these changes are being implemented without the board's review, discussion, collaboration with the superintendent, and most importantly, board approval. Yesterday, all MSCS employees received an email from Dr. Fagans about staff reductions and reassignments that will go into effect on July 1st, 2024. It is imperative that we have a better understanding of the directions that she has taken the district before another action on staff changing is made. We received an email from Superintendent Fagans on a few weeks ago stating the current changes being made are based on recommendations given prior to April 1st. Board members received an email on March 8, 2024 that stated the budget was finalized by administration or the interim superintendent. Just a reminder that Mr. Langston, Dr. Whitelaw, and other executives were presenting their best thinking and overview of some departments. There has not been a proposed budget submitted or presented for approval. I want to remind board members that in November 2023, no specific budget proposal or recommendations were made for the board's consideration at that time. The interim superintendent at that time agreed that the district would continue to assess, prioritize, and collaborate with the board on potential cuts before making any recommendations to us. Board members, typically the process has been superintendents review or obtain recommendations from their senior leadership. The superintendent shares those recommendations with the board during budget retreat before a proposed budget is approved and implemented. The board has not voted on a budget yet for the next year, and some of the cuts being made now are premature until we have a better understanding of the direction Superintendent Fagans is going with the district. It is our responsibility to put a pause on the process of staffing changes until we see a comprehensive plan and the financial impact it will have on the district. The proposed increase in teachers' pay, I love it. I'm a retired teacher, and we want our teachers to be compensated for their work. We are cutting positions and giving raises at the same time. This board needs to know what the long-term financial and personnel effects on the school district before any more displacement occur. Before I introduce the resolution, I want to ask the Chief Financial Officer, has there been a change in revenue projections since the $150 million deficit that was estimated in February? How much in additional revenues are now in the budget since the budget retreat? And I'll stop to let you answer.
Chair Green, I promise you I was listening. Can you state your questions again?
Has there been a change in revenue projections since the $150 million deficit that was estimated in February? How much in additional revenues are now in the budget since the budget retreat?
And when you say budget retreat, are you referring to in March or in March?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Pierce, can you pull up the... So go to the next slide. So, board commissioners, if you allow me to, I'm going to walk you through a timeline, if you will. I'll discuss I'll give an education to the public about how the budget works. We'll talk a little about revenues, expenditures, some pressures of the budget, how we got here, and things of that nature. So I'm gonna take us back to November. So, Chair Green, you mentioned in November. So to your point, in November, when we bring a budget to the board, to your point, the budget is always at a proposal, if you will, until the board approves. It's our job and the superintendent. It's my job to bring a recommendation to the superintendent, and whoever the superintendent is, and the superintendent's job to bring the recommendation to the board. So in November, what we know is that over the last 3 years, we had $776 million of federal money in ESSER. Our back is up even before ESSER. When I came to the district in 2019, when I walked through the door in October, we had a $58 million current deficit in that year in the budget. Fund balance was below 8%, which was it was at 7.6%, which was below the recommended amount for policy for the board. Fast forward to COVID. COVID happened again. We got $776 million. When we got to $776 million, just in full transparency, we knew, one, the state asked us to do 20% that was allowed for learning loss. And to do so, we entered into strategies related to that learning loss, and we, at the time, chose to do 1,296 positions with the ESSERs 1, 2, and 3 at the time. So again, if you keep in count, there was 1,296 positions that we added to the budget in 2021 of that year. Board Member Woods often asks all the time during budget season how many year-over-year positions that we'd added. So we added about 1,300 positions, if you will, to the budget. So, which makes it tough. So I want to quickly walk us through what this, again, proposal said that. So one of the things that I knew, just as the chief financial officer at the time, there was a couple things that I always hear in our back of our heads for somebody to approve this budget. So board, always remember that, of course, it's always you guys that pushes us to approve the budget, and we also have to take it to our funding body, who also puts a fine-tooth comb on the budget, and they ask some of these tough questions as well. The first thing I knew, and the thing that I've been hearing since I walked back into this district, is that you guys are too top-heavy. Okay, everybody, we can all agree. We always hear that. So the first line that I wanted for consideration for everybody to see is that we were going to cut top-level staff. Again, it's just a recommendation. I don't get to make any decisions. Just a recommendation to the board that, hey, since we're too top-heavy, I need this budget to be approved so we can do student achievement. It's a recommendation that we cut about $1.6 million or 8 positions related to top-level staff. Then again, these are just prayer proposals and talks. And then when you go through a strategic budget, you want to look at data that aligns to every dollar that you spent. So when we talk about, just as we did at the board retreat, every penny that we spend has to be related to a priority that the board sets. So again, my job is to bring us along, bring my colleagues along, and to see what is working as we look at data. So again, one of the things that I looked at, again, just for recommendations, is to look at how we were doing alternative schools at the time. Right now we had 6 programs. Only a proposal, if we knock down 6 programs to 4 because some of them was underutilized, would get us about a $2.6 million savings, and we could use a reduction in that staff and move it elsewhere, and we could get a savings to the budget. The next thing you always want to look at, and is one of the reasons why we're here today, is you want to look at duplication of resources across the entire district. If you have positions and strategies that are duplicative in nature, then it's my job to bring light to the district and say that we shouldn't be spending dollars on things that's duplicative in nature. So one of the things, again, that we looked at, again, not saying this is a strategy to say that we had to go and do the work to see if we had duplication in resources, and if we found to be such, we had to make those cuts out of the budget. So if you look at some of the things we looked at, we have health services, coordinated school health promotions. What if it looked like if we combine those resources together and get a savings, if you will? Pardon me, guys, I'm gonna just walk through it again, just giving an education. Next thing we looked at was we have financial positions across the entire district. It's my job and my team's job is to handle the finance for the district. So I said, even doing ESSER, my team can handle all financial things in nature. If we bring everything finance-wise into the finance office, we could save close to $200,000 or so. Every penny counts. Then we looked at virtual settings in high schools. Again, just a proposal. We have an adult high school. We also have a student virtual high school. Only proposal to say while they are kind of operate separately, you have a principal in one and a principal in the other, let's bring them together and maximize our resources. Again, I'm just taking you through how the budget process works, because I think it's very important for a lot of people to understand, like, what do these tough nights look like, because we don't take it lightly. Next thing we want to do is, and I heard it in the back of my head, and I'm gonna call Commissioner Garcia out, why don't we improve the fidelity of our academic strategies? So, okay, 750 educational assistants is where of the 1296 that we did in the budget. 136 of them have been in and out vacant, so I'll talk about that in a minute. 136 positions that have been vacant in and out. One good thing is that we've used a pipeline for specialized educational assistants to become teachers. So what I said at the time, since we've been running a vacancy rate on these educational assistants, and at the time, if you look at the data, again, some of my colleagues are going to look at me funny, but I got to tell the story. If you look at the data around the specialized educational assistants at the time, they were moving the needle, but we wasn't how do I say this? We wasn't consistent with how we use the educational assistant to know if they truly worked. So right now, what we said was Dr. Whitelaw and the team went back and devised a plan of the ones that were filled. We're going to use these, and we're going to cut the 136 to get us $8 million. We looked at tutoring. ESSER allowed us to do some extended things with tutoring. We had a $33 million budget in tutoring, although it was a runway to between $8 and $11 million. So we knew right off the bat we can reduce $22 million for tutoring. So that's the number that you see. We always we had a discussion last year, board commissioners, if you remember, around Liaison. So at the time in November, we talked about the extra hour and what data did we have behind it. One of the discussions that was on the table is if we didn't fully go away from the extra hour, at least let's go away from the elementary. Because again, some of the most things where we're hearing even from teachers is that, hey, that extra hour is a tough hour, and the students, they check out and they don't come in the extra hour. Again, looking at the data to see if it supports the extra hour, there's no way we can bring it to you if the data doesn't support. So we put that on the table. Then we're talking about gaining operational efficiencies. Again, if you're doing a budget, the most important thing you want to do is gain operational efficiencies. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that you have to cut positions because, again, your spread is so thin. One of the things we did, and ESSER afforded us the opportunity is to have a one-to-one device department. That 95% of the department is funded by ESSER. We had a yeoman's task. I give that team all the credit in the world. It took us, we had to get out over 100,000 devices back during COVID at the time. So what we know though is that in order to sustain that, we just had to revamp the plan. Devices stay at school, we don't have to send out 100,000 devices. We can cut back on the department that we spent so much ramping up. So again, that was up for discussion. I always bring every year, if we reduce our travel, we can gain some efficiencies. That $2 million. We wanted to review our bus routes, look at MLGW, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and how we can get discounts and savings to the budget. We talked about performance-based contracts. At that time, I said $2.5 million, but what I can sit here and tell you today is we've cut over $30 million in contracts in this budget, way before we ever touched personnel. We cut over $30 million in contracts in this budget. And board members, I'm happy to give you it's in your binder, but I'm happy to give you exactly line by line what those contracts are. And then it's last, but it's certainly not least, one of the things we always consider in the budget, and it's one of the things that I won't stake claim to it, but you always do is, no matter if your enrollment is down or whatever, you always protect the schools because that's where the magic happens in the schools. So one of the things we always knew is, even though ESSER was being offloaded, we wanted to protect the schools because, again, what we know is that everybody knows our numbers, but in order to sustain, we have to make investments in the school no matter what the enrollment looks like. So we put some opportunities on the table, talked about at the time, do we go back to a regional model? And that was developed by looking at, if you go back and look over the years what has happened to us, in 2016, we had more students in the district than we have now, and we operated on less of a budget. We have less students now, and our budget has increased, and so has our personnel. So again, looking at things like that, and that's how you become and look at a structurally balanced budget. So let's go to the next slide. So Board Chair Green, you mentioned about revenues. So our revenues did increase. We got an additional $23 million from TISA with our revenues. The base was $66,860 per student in the current year, 23-24. Now next year, the state is proposing $7,075 per student, only on the base portion, and then we predict outcomes and things like that. So just as a revenues portion, back in November, we don't fully get our estimate of revenues until around March. Back in November, what the team does is we try to predict our estimates on what our revenues will be. And obviously, we're going to be conservative because if you don't, then you'll face a situation where you have to cut even more. So we were a little conservative back in November, and then we true up as we go. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner Green. We did increase in revenues as well. But I want to give a quick education of what our budget looks like. Oftentimes, we always say we got a $2 billion budget. We're a little shy of $2 billion right now. Just a quick education of our budget. 51% of our budget is personnel. 51% of the $2 billion is personnel. So oftentimes when we think about personnel, what we've done, I'll give us credit and then I'll give us kind of a little flack over the past years. Well, we've done a good job in cutting vacant positions, if you will, which is why we're at the point now where we don't have as many vacant positions as we did before. So in the past, we didn't have this discussion because we were cutting vacant positions and leaving people in field positions, if you will, in those roles. Because again, this is a difficult conversation to have. So again, 51% of your budget is personnel. Over $500 million of your $2 billion goes directly to schools. We have to pay teachers, we have to pay principals, support staff, so on and so forth. And then quickly, Erica, can you go to the next slide? Commissioner Garcia, you asked about this at the board retreat. So here are the things that we absolutely have to pay for before that can't be cut out of the budget. I think I give this lesson every year, but I want everybody to understand why we got a full captive audience. There are $973 million of this is just a general fund, of the $1.2 billion are things that we absolutely have to pay for. We cannot cut from this. We have, so my good friend, Dr. Richmond, is saying that it's restricted, and if you know about restricted, it means we can't touch. One of the things I want to point you to, again, I mentioned, one of the other things I want to point to you is a budget pressure too, is I want to point you to the fourth line, which is, again, I'm not anti-charter, but I have to give facts. Part of our revenues that we receive in the district is just a pass-through. With us having 55 charter schools, we pass on $256 million directly to charter schools related to TISA and then the county funding we get. If you come down to the second but last line, if you add another $11.3 million, that currently goes out the door to the U of M and to Excel Center. So again, these are things that we absolutely have to pay for. We have to pay $92,639,586. I know the number to the T because that's what we have to pay, and that's the maintenance of effort for a SPED MOE. In order for us to get IDEA, we have to pay $92 million every year for a SPED MOE. It absolutely has to happen. That's how we pay for our SPED transportation. That's how we pay for our exceptional children teachers. That's how we pay for our OT-PT contracts, speech pathologists, and things of that nature. So again, I wanted to talk through this again because again, everybody sees that we have a $2 billion budget, but again, 973 of that we cannot cut from because it's restricted and it's fixed and mandated. Can you go back a slide quickly, Erica? Then again, quickly, if you go to our capital improvement budget, again, no personnel is there. That's strictly what we spend out on buildings. And we're hopeful that we can get $96 million. Since you guys are giving me the floor, allow me to stay for a second. $206 million we can't touch. Special revenue budget is $51.3 million. Of that, we have first aid, that's our early childhood, and the rest of the majority of that is our ISM grant for CCTE. We got $44.2 million over the course of 3 years. So again, there's no personnel related to that, and that's how our special revenue budget works. Fast forward over to nutrition, it's $88 million. Again, that's where we pay for our nutrition staff, our food supplies, and things of that nature. Then if you go over to federal programs, there's a little bit of ESSER left in it because we're Clifton, but the majority of our federal program are grants that that also Clift as well, and then there's also Title I. We get Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV every year, and those are things that go to support the schools as well. And then finally, our internal service funds, which is a warehouse, printing, and things of that nature. Quickly, we got to close to $2 billion again, just giving an education. So now let's go through, Erica, if you could take me to the slide after this. So after our fixed and mandated costs, we have about $298 million worth of decisions that we can play with. Seems like a lot of money. But the board, if you remember over the last couple of years, one of the things that, and I'll give the superintendent credit for this, is when she walked to the door, her words were, "Give me the 50." I say, "Superintendent, I'll do you one better. I'll get you the 50,811.28 cents." And that's what that's our current starting rate for our teachers right now. And last I checked, we was the highest starting pay in the state. Over the last 2 years, we've invested $60 million in the teacher salary schedule. And one of the things that I explained to the superintendent is that our 100% can get us to $50,000. But I also remember that the state is at 44,500. And then board commissioners, as you always need to remember, once we invest in the teacher salary schedule, we also have to sustain it as well. So the decisions we make today determine what happens tomorrow as well. And I'm willing to tell you that with the MOU, there's no going back on what the teacher paid. As a matter of fact, my good friends, I'm not gonna turn back there. They're probably gonna come back looking for even more next year. But I think I got them happy, at least for now. But again, I want to talk about that. One of the other proposals that we're looking at in this market, again, of things that we have to do is our principals are, I don't want to use the word underpaid, but they're not paid as if you look at the salaries around what the state looks like. If you look at Nashville's salary schedule for principals, we're not currently there. So again, one of the proposals is that we get there for principals as well as we do for teachers, because again, that's where the magic happens in the classroom. We have a high vacancy rate for our nutrition workers. One of the things we did 3 years ago was we brought them up to a living wage. What we know now is that the living wage is inflated now. So we got to continue to push up, because again, what happens is we're either going to pay it for the nutrition workers in pay, or we're going to pay it for overtime and overwork some people who are in the buildings and stick around. So we got to do an increase for our nutrition workers. We got to do an increase for our office secretaries. That's a position that's going in and out. And let me tell you why it's so important. Because those are the people who handle our attendance data. The reason why that matters is because that's how we get funding. We're not a revenue generating body, but we have to consider the investment, because we don't want to have people going in and out as general office secretaries. And a good friend of mine even suggested that we make that an analytical position, so you can have people who analyze data, and you make the wage to be so. Again, I know I'm rambling, but I need everybody to understand the education of this $2 billion budget. The next one is our craftsmen. So board members, another pressure of the budget is we just had a discussion around the new bills. So right now, we are underfunded for the new bills. So if nothing happens, they begin to break ground on Fraser already, Ms. Love. They've broken ground on Fraser. You know it? You've been out there? So right now we have $77 million for Fraser. If for some reason why they don't come up with the rest, they're gonna come knocking on our door, and we gotta be ready to finish Fraser. And we have to do so and prepare it in our budget. The superintendent, when she came, she presented a $96 million list for phase one of an infrastructure plan. That's phase one. I'm willing to tell y'all, and y'all heard me say this over and over, we didn't get 1 penny of deferred maintenance from the county this year. We had to spend $58 million of our own fund balance to do deferred maintenance. Board Member Calvo, you asked a lot about that, and I'm happy. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow at 5, get ready to go down to the commission. I hope something changed, but if not, we might be facing the same situation tomorrow, and guess what? I'm gonna come knocking on the commissioner's door, because the schools are still breaking each and every day, and we have to fix them. We have fire alarm issues. We have roofs leaking. We have HVACs that's out. It's going to be a heat wave next week, and commissioners, y'all are going to be breaking down our doors saying that SLA is going on in the school of my district, and you need to get the HVAC going. And we're going to have to pull that money from our budget. So again, things that we need to know. $96 million, again, of things that has to happen. I got good and bad news. The good news is, board commissioners, you've done the good work and let us go out and do an assessment of all the buildings. The bad news is when that assessment comes back, we're going to be in $1 billion situation of deferred maintenance. And we got to make some critical, hard decisions on how we in phase is going to take care of those buildings. We can't shut them all down. We're going to have to address the issue. And if the county doesn't help us, if the city doesn't help us, and maybe they will with $5 or $6 million, but again, I mentioned $1 billion. So again, all of these things I want to keep in the back of mind. We don't take this lightly, and we know we're here in some difficult conversations. Nobody wants anybody to lose their job, but again, I'm just giving a mindset of what we look at when we think about the budget. So the last one is, I mentioned is our craftsmen. Our craftsmen we only have a few of them. We have 2 electricians on staff. We have about 3 plumbers. We have 1 locksmith who is probably going to retire in the next 6 weeks. We're competing with Blue Oval. We're competing with everybody around the entire state of Tennessee to get our craftsmen. So again, I mentioned $206 million gets us to capital improvement budgets, but when the schools, and we have over on Project Build over 2,000 work orders, we have to fix some of those things in-house, and we can't fix it in-house when we don't have the talent in-house. In order to do so, guess what? We got to increase the pay for our craftsmen, and that's coming as well. So if we don't increase the pay for craftsmen, then board, we're going to be coming to you with contracts every month saying that, hey, we got to pay for it one way or the other. We're going to either do it in-house or we got to contract it. So again, those are some of the things that I want to think about. The last thing I want to note is that when we got ESSER again, we, at the time, as I mentioned before, 1,296 positions. 750 of them was specialized educational assistants. Another 61 of them was behavior specialists. Another 77 of them was reset room assistants. So again, what we're proposing now is in those reset assistants, those behavior specialists, those specialized educational assistants, they've been beaten down the door as well as everybody else asking if they're going to be keeping their jobs as well. And the answer is right now we're proposing that they do. But remember, those monies were in ESSER, and now when you have to move them over to the general fund, you have to cut somewhere else to be able to afford those positions that support schools. So again, that's the education that I want to give to that board. We have a lot of pressures with the budget. Again, today's price is not tomorrow's price. And if we don't make key decisions today, we can punt it, but we'll be right back here next year. And matter of fact, even if we don't punt, I hate to say this, but I'll give a preview is we're probably going to be back right here next year anyway. We got some difficult decisions to make. The only thing I would say, possibly we could have did it in waves, and we could have done it over the last couple of years. We chose to do vacant positions because we didn't want to have this heartburn. It just kicked it down the road. But unfortunately, board, we're here now, and we don't take it lightly. We review every position that's in the budget, looked at it, analyzed it. Every position that everybody sits in, everybody thinks their position is critical, and it is, because we have to move data for schools. But again, this budget, with the investments that we're proposing, it puts the resources back in schools. And unfortunately, in a landscape where we have hundreds of teacher vacancies, we have to make a critical decision on how we're going to fill those teacher vacancies. And so again, I wanted to walk through that timeline. And the last thing I'll say before with the timeline is a lot of these decisions were proposed again before Dr. Fagans ever walked through the door. When she came through the door, she was presented with a list of 812 cuts for personnel that included field and vacant positions. Again, there was 812 positions that gave our best thinking at the time as an entire district of what we can do to make some dedicated reductions, if you will. So I'll pause there. I'll take any questions or anything as it relates to that.
I'm still waiting on you to answer that question. Are we still estimating? Are we still estimating that we have additional TISA revenue that is coming for this 2023-2024 school year? And what does that look like?
Yes, ma'am. I think I answered it. I told you we went from 6860 to 7075. There was $23 million of additional TISA money that we got. But again, if you keep in count, we also invested $28.3 million on teacher salaries. So that money quickly went to a quick wash for teachers, for teacher salaries. So again, that was one of the proposals that we used to kind of pay for teacher salaries, if that makes sense.
And I'm looking at that the revenue from 2024, 2025, the revenue will continue to go up. But I think the concern is when you are going to do something drastic, the board must be brought along. And I think that's the conversation. I don't have a problem with change, and we know that some things will change. But what you can't do is make drastic changes where somebody sit at a meeting and say, I now qualify for food stamps. That's what I don't want us to do. We have to make changes. We understand that. And you gave us proposed changes, but somehow we strayed away from what you gave us, which were ESSER funding. Let's look at that. And we just began to go you don't have to respond. We just began to go all across the board to even principals. You said, we're not touching principals. Well, we got an email that I shared with the whole board. So I'm not asking you to respond. I'm just asking for transparency and that this board, who is the governing body, this board, who still control the checks that go out, we be brought along on the journey, and you not bring us in on the tail end when we've got MSCS, unhappy employees, and we have to answer to them. They are a part of this Memphis-Shelby County School family. Our students are important. Yes, they are, all 110,000, but so are all of the people who work in this district. And so I'm going to stop and open it up and let my colleagues have comments because I think every light is on. And I will start with District 1 and just keep going.
Thank you, Chair Green, and thank you, CFO Langston. I think I want to redirect because thank you for a very robust education of how the budget works, but I think our questions really should be directed toward our new superintendent who's taken on a lot. And I think everyone has spoken today, the public comment appreciates the need for having to make some draconian changes in some respect. So I want to get a little bit more into your mindset of how you went about making these changes that you're recommending to make.
Thank you, Commissioner McKissick. Thank you, Chair Green, for opening this up. Thank you, CFO Langston, for walking through some historical context that's incredibly important. So to your direct question, thank you. So the thinking behind it, I think when I walked in as a candidate, I walked in with a binder of data. So that shaped the thinking. What are the needs that exist directly in the spaces where the expectations are for performance to be high across the district, nearly 200 spaces, and what does that look like for leaders and learners respectively? To make the magic happen in the classrooms in the schools requires a deep investment, and it requires deeper investments as we think about prioritizing the priorities. And so as we think about our schools who have been designated by the state with a letter grade according to the system for report cards that I do not agree with, but that is the case that we have to work alongside. Our schools that have been designated as D or F, now known as SOUP schools, require the greatest supports. As I think about the 79 schools, because charter schools, although they have autonomy, I have included them in the deep conversations about how the work could look moving forward. So for those 79 schools, it's about looking at exactly what they need, having the conversations with every principal, allowing them to create their own plan, to cut the fluff, for lack of better words, to name specifically what they need to move the work, to provide the type of educational journey that every child deserves and desires, to be able to support the professionals, the leaders who lead that work simultaneously, and how do we do that consistently in a way that gets us the outcomes that we know we can achieve, but also how do we get those outcomes in such a way that we can continue building on for the next few years. And so as I looked at the proposed 812, that didn't include several vacancies, it did not include the 156 third-year permit teachers who have exhausted their time, it did not include include the 70 educational support professionals who are in our spaces for proximity where there is not a certified teacher currently. And so that was an additional 226 positions. I reviewed each of the 812, if you will, by department. I took a look and asked each individual, if not the individual themselves, I asked their director. If not the director, I asked the senior leader. And in many cases, I asked all, sitting in the conference room, and about what is it that you do, and more importantly, make the connection between the outcomes for our students. As the individuals went forward and shared, some had to go and come back. Some of those conversations continued among senior leaders for sure, and arriving at some pretty incredible decisions. Several of them I held, I did not honor, and others I did, which is how we got here. So the 441 vacant positions of the 1,100, of that 659, then you dwindle down into what I just shared. I think that in addition to that, knowing that you cannot, well, I can only speak for me, review a district of this size in a short amount of time, I looked at 4 or 5 departments. That was internal audit, the chief of staff, the office of the superintendent. I looked at the deputy superintendent of supports. I looked within that into academics as well. And so that's where most of the positions that I reviewed came from. Looking overall at the positions that were provided, there are duplicated services. And what I mean by that is we have some directors reporting to or a senior advisor reporting to a director that has another senior advisor. They share a grant across 4 people, or a lot of duplicated services in that regard. We have smaller departments where the work can be managed by 2 people. We have the opportunity on my team, I went from 14 to 9. I decreased the office of the superintendent itself from 6, including me, to 4 or 5. I have to look at my numbers. The chief of staff's office, I removed or eliminated in general, and so the work done by like 10 is now done by 3 to 4, with the opportunity that as we move forward, we can add. Looking at internal audit and understanding what the needs and what the requirements are per the state for that department, I considered that and how we utilize that particular department and aligning it and moving it to the general counsel's office. I looked at academics and looked at the seed department. I reviewed virtual learning and the seeding of it. I generally looked at in information technology and its understanding of currently being seated alone and not really providing the supports in the way that they need to for our schools, especially considering when I entered there was a parent who asked why did it take 3 weeks to receive a laptop. I reviewed across the board, listening to and reviewing 1,000 or may have been 2,000 or so responses to the survey that I gave to central office employees that asked them sharply about their opportunities for advancement that they've been provided. I asked them how long they've been in some of their positions. I asked them what the culture was like. I asked them what were some of their solutions and suggestions to making this work move the way that it needs to be moved. And believe it or not, central office said there are too many of us here. So I looked at departments where those individuals responded, where they were okay because it was anonymous with naming themselves and or their respective departments. I started there. I asked individuals for 3 individuals that they trusted with the district. And so with those 3 individuals that everyone mentioned, I talked to those 3 individuals to talk about how the work could be more streamlined, where the resources could be better allocated, how we could do better about monitoring the practices, what it could really look like to hope and dream, but also realize what outcomes could look like and very well should look like for a district that's nearly 80% African American, and we can go on and on with about the demographics and what comes along with that. I took a look at the budget itself, reviewing line by line every contract that we have in this district. I asked the team to go back to the table and place it and attach it to outcomes that can be said about the same. They were offered the opportunity to recommend to kick or keep, and I reviewed them with them, and some of them in executive team, others with current cabinet leaders, and made the decisions of what was not contributing to the bottom line or what's most important to our district. Thus, the $33 million that we arrived at, with some opportunities to continue to review as we think about how to move the work forward. I reviewed general across-the-board salaries and what that looked like, including mine. And so I have mine, and that's where we are with that. It was negotiated. I looked at the context of what cost of living is. I considered where imbalance and inequities exist in what people make. I considered what people make in context to what they do, and I considered it all in context to how it moves the work or it does not. Although the compensation salary is just in effect for those July moving forward for new positions, I did commit to the team that we would bring to the board the compensation salary schedule, the conversion table, so that we honor total experience and not just direct experience, as that presents an opportunity for personnel to be biased in review of the respective experiences provided by individuals. That was also highlighted in the surveys. Background about traveling or being recruited to the district from Arizona in different spaces and then arriving here and not being compensated for the same. And so we will complete a compensation analysis over the course of the next year to balance out our salaries, and most individuals will see a pretty good increase. I took a look at where the vacancies were. Obviously, we cut vacant positions, but where they were, and to determine hard-to-staff positions, and ask the staff to bring support and suggestions of what it could look like to provide stipends for hard-to-staff spaces and hard-to-staff positions. I reviewed and considered the proposal from our principals and have included in the proposal for the budget the same, an increase for their salaries. I reviewed the services and went and visited the nutrition space to look at the work, to go into the freezer, to take a look at what it looks like to move food from one space to the other. And I considered the work that they do and in alignment with or misalignment with their current hourly rate, the hours that they put in. They're waking up at 1 and 2 a.m. in the morning to ensure that every student can have some semblance of a meal, although the students are not happy with the meals. I also considered the sense of urgency that exists around right-sizing a district without respect to names of personnel, but looking directly at positions. As we consider what the work looks like moving forward, I was able to add positions to the budget and net an increase of still over $600,000. And so with those additions, I have not added anything to the budget. I've actually given back something, if you will, so that we can deploy it out to add late buses for transportation. As our students mentioned, they don't have access to go home for travel if we're expecting for them to be connected in at least one organization. I reviewed what positions were funded out of general fund. I generally took a look at the 1,296 positions that were funded ESSER total and what that could look like. I considered the value of our specialized education assistants, our current attendance specialists, our highly specialized reading and education advisors, our behavior specialists, our reset assistants, as I walked into school after school and considered the socio-emotional impact and the mental well-being of all of our students, but certainly how that impacts the climate and the culture and the space of a campus. I reviewed and considered the TISA model and what that looks like as we chase excellence, if we can get to the other side and achieve the types of outcomes that bankrupts the state because they may have to pay us so much. I also considered, with context of the budget, what cuts could look like over the course of time and how to phase that out, which is why I only arrived at reviewing those 5 spaces with consideration of the 812 that were provided to me, and then ultimately getting to the 1,035 by adding those 156 third-year permit teachers and the 70 education support professionals for proximity classes.
Thank you for that robust answer. I have a slew of other questions, but I want to defer to my colleagues, who I'm sure will touch upon some of the ones that I want to address as well, as far as communication,
Absolutely.
as far as the timeline, and moving so robustly since the 2 months that you've been in this position. But I will defer to my next colleague.
I just in transparency of how I operate in private and how I operate in public, I actually don't have a whole lot of lingering questions, but I do have some things that I hope to be true in a comprehensive plan I think that we want to see spelled out. But I want to be very clear that in a change management situation, it wasn't necessarily the what or why. It's very clear it was to serve underperforming students. It is to raise achievement. This budget is focused on getting supports to schools, but the communication caused panic, chaos, and when you mess with someone's livelihood, that is traumatic. And I got nothing short of alarm with a district-wide email. So that was not done well, and the communication is a key pillar of how we move through change. So I do believe you work with your team in making these decisions, and we got to do things that keep us in strong fiscal health. But a few things that have come up that I want to be on the record as making sure that are true about the restructuring of staff, eliminations, is that anyone going to a classroom who's had a job eliminated or they're volunteering to go back to the classroom, they should get their years of service for anything that they've done instructional related. Not a 2-to-1, not some sort of ratio. The maximum we can pay them to go back into the classroom and honor that instructional experience, and there should be no gap in pay. If your role is ending at the end of June and you don't start until the school year, we should not be messing with people's pay and benefits. Same for anyone going from a 12-month role to a 10-month role. Let's not do that. That's messes with livelihood. I heard you say the step and lane schedules would not start until July 1st, but I just want to be very clear that if people have a change in title but they are doing the same job, I do not expect them to take pay decreases. If we are still expecting them to perform, we grandfather them in, and then we put a strong performance evaluation system in place that it is equitable and implemented with fidelity, so you have real data about whether they're earning and whether they're contributing to academic outcomes and our priorities and vision and mission of the district. We do not have that. And then I think there's been a lot of chat of proper notice. Let's be very clear that we will give the proper notice for anyone who has a job change. But I would like us to consider some sort of, where we don't have a role that's within 20% of salary, consider what a severance package would look like for those employees. And then, thank you. And then just bring us along, like the gap here was how it was communicated. And that is, I look forward to working with you and seeing that comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. First of all, to the chair, thank you for assembling this conversation, this needed public conversation. And to the superintendent, thank you for stepping in the gap, bringing your team out, your trusted colleagues, your team members who have put years of sweat equity into this district, elevating them into leadership roles, and when they talk, we listen. So I want to say again, thank you for having these individuals, this broad group of folks who are here, both to support you, but also to challenge you. And that's exactly what this board will do. We can do both. I want to reiterate to the public who seems to be marking a line in the sand, teachers who navigate up through the central office for working hard in the classroom, caring for kids, getting promoted, like my good friend Dr. Richmond. You can start as a teacher and still grow and do great work. We got to be able to show as a board that there are pathways there. It's not an us versus them. So I want to clearly state my position that it's okay to grow in this work, and it's also okay to be rewarded as teachers for being in front of kids each and every day, being in front of my kids each and every day. So with that, I want to ask the question, Superintendent, as you take on these challenges, if we hear from Mr. Langston, the necessary budget cuts, I have echoed over and over and over and over again, culture and climate, culture and climate. It doesn't matter what you do, what you dream, what you believe, what you pay teachers to get them excited because they will be back next year. Without a culture and climate that starts at the top, that this is a place that you can dream and be and grow, that you want to come work for here. Don't worry about paying anybody to drive from Arizona, because they will not come if we don't have a culture and climate that says you can do great work here, you can be compensated work here, and if you leave the classroom, if you're bold enough to get recruited out of the classroom, you will be treated with dignity in the event that you're called to go back and serve. And what that dignity looks like for some may not look like for others. And that is why we get to have these conversations, which is dignity looks like, hey, I challenge you to go back and serve kids, but at the same time, I respect the fact that that is a drastic compensation change for where you are. What does that look like working in partnership with HR, with our CFO, and say, what does that look like bringing them down to that salary schedule as opposed to that announcement being a month? There's a reason we have a budget schedule, Mr. Langston, that starts in November, right? It's to hear the board priorities, but to signal, these cuts are coming. And for those who hem and haw, I've been here. We've had to cut, Dr. Richmond and I, doing the merger, we had to cut a bunch of folks' jobs. But it was no surprise in the 11th hour. We stood boldly as board members and say, this is coming. And if you don't like the fact that I'm making these tough decisions, go and elect someone else. And guess what? I'm still here. We can make tough decisions and stand up for them, but it's okay to inform them early and inform them often. We get to do that. You cannot build a great culture if people don't hear from you directly and clearly on what the game plan is. And so that is why I challenge you, Superintendent, I support you. I want to say it publicly, I support you. I support you saying in your interview that central office is bloated and this board is still hiring you. That says that this board is not playing gotcha, this board isn't out to get you, but this board will answer to its constituents, which are the employees of this district. And so when I get a notification that my salary is being reduced by 30%, you getting a WTF. You're getting explain that out loud. You're getting to come to the principal office and tell me why you're doing it. And that's okay. And then this board will say, you know what? We got your back. Or this board will say, bring that budget and you're going to make some changes. Yep. That's what this meeting is for. And I'm super excited to be here. And thank you for standing in the gap. I got more comments later.
Well, everything has been said that I say to you personally and in public. Communication is important. This board is in charge of the budget. We have to answer to our constituents. I voted for you. I support you. But I support my community 100%. I had a stroke 2 years ago, and my arm is paralyzed. I know what the impact is of not having 2 working arms to do my job. I sympathize, strongly sympathize with the people who are losing their job and experiencing a pay cut. I am happy that you did exactly what you said in your interview. Bring us along and share the workload. You can't do it by yourself.
Going Commissioner Williams, Johnson, Calvo, Coleman. Starting with you, Commissioner Williams.
I am appalled that this board was not informed and did not know what was going on. I do think that we did hire the superintendent. I do think that you answer to this board. And all of this could have been avoided had we been a part of the movement. But to receive calls from colleagues and from people that we live here, we work here, I was born here, been here all my life. So it is going to be it's very difficult to explain something that we were not a part of. A simple organizational chart plotting your plan would have been sufficient to me. Had I known what you were trying to do in the intent, could have perhaps given some advice or some assistance of some kind, but to be called into a meeting and told you cannot ask questions, you cannot do this, you have to sit and leave, that is dogmatic and unacademic. That's just not something we do in Memphis, because these folks can be your friends or they can be your enemies. So you do not want to call a meeting, and I'm told, we were given these information. We were not allowed to ask questions and open this up when you leave, and when you see it, you've been cut $50,000 and assigned to a classroom. It just does not happen that way here. I stayed in this district 50 years, and it doesn't happen that way. There are things that you can do, but this board was not brought along, and we felt the brunt of it after it happened. Folk calling me, setting me out. I knew nothing about it. But had I known something about it, I could have given you some good advice. And it would have been, let these folks talk, listen to them. If you have to cut, let us know what you're going on. But I didn't even have an organization. I didn't know what they were talking about. Had no idea we were getting ready to revamp the whole system in this manner. I just didn't know it. And having had knowledge of it on this board would have made a world of difference to me, because I could have given you some good advice. And as long as you're in Memphis, there's a way we do things, and there's a way things get done. And it's not through undermining and undercutting and doing those. It doesn't work well here. So I would just say that there's work to be done. It can be redone, but the board must be brought along in this process at every step of it. I don't want to be broadsided by the community, by constituents, by friends, by colleagues, by neighbors who are sitting at meetings and telling me, do you know we were told we couldn't even ask questions? We were given this form and we were given an assignment, lost $40,000 down a third grade teacher. It doesn't make sense, and I'm just very hopeful that this board will take some steps to ensure that we are a part of whatever the solution is to right-size this thing, because it has to be made right.
Is it my turn? Yes, sir. Okay. I would suggest, I received a lot of phone calls about the recent changes or proposed changes to the account, to whatever. And it blew my mind because I did not want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. And like Stephanie, I share her sentiment because I too had a stroke. But then I was fired during the course of my recovery. I understand what that's like. And, we are going through legal processes now because we're trying to determine if I was fired legally. And, it's not here or there. But there needs to be real communication. There needs to be real communication. I have no problem with you. And I told you that. I have no problem. But if we continue to do our employees like this, then stakes change. And so keep on doing what you're doing, but you have to inform us so we can inform our populations and we can inform our people.
When we went to the retreat a couple of weeks ago, we talked about your role and our role, and we talked about governance being a joint venture. So it's clear to me that it is your job to make decisions about stuff, but you cannot make those decisions by yourself. And I told you that earlier. It's not only about bringing us along. We have to work in tandem. We have to work together on these things because we have three jobs here. We have to support you, we have to hold you accountable, and we have to approve the budget, right? And neither one of them are exclusive of the other ones. We can do all those three things. But, when Tito, when you mentioned that there were 812 positions to be cut, we didn't get that. We heard about those things, but we also heard that no positions were going to be cut, and then the positions were going to be cut. And we went back and forth, and there was no clarity. What we need from, Dr. Figgins, the first day I met you, I told you this, you are such a strong communicator. And you are crisp in your communications, except this time. The time that we needed you to be the amazing communicator, seems like nobody on this body felt like we were fully communicated. So either we're all crazy or you didn't communicate well, right? So we are, I understand that we have to make tough choices. I told you, I will support you publicly and privately. If we cannot afford a position or we don't need a position, we're gonna have to make some tough choices. And I'm fine with that. But I need to know what's going on. When we go to a budget retreat and we talk about all these things and we get the same page, one pager, to talk a little bit about money, everything else was about a lot of other important stuff. Then we get a budget draft on a Saturday, and on Monday, everybody gets hit with an email that I didn't know was coming. And then we're here, like everybody's like, how did we arrive here so quickly? I think what this board needs and what this body wants, I speak for myself, we want a plan. You propose a plan, we discuss the plan, we agree on that, then we approve a budget, and once we have a budget approved, then we can make decisions, who gets to stay and who gets to go. You make those decisions. I'm not gonna say the principal or Miss Susie or Miss Smith, you make those decisions. But that's after we have gone through a process of getting to a plan and getting to a budget. I feel like we're making decisions about letting people stay or go before we have a budget. And the budget may be I know it's on your head, but it's not on ours. Like we saw the budget on Saturday and the email went on Monday. So that's my frustration, that I wasn't prepared. Like, I want to see your plan because we want to support you and we want to hold you accountable and we want to do what is best for kids, but we cannot be blindsided. So again, I expect that from you as our only employee, a communication, a plan that then we can evaluate collectively. We need 5 votes, we pass it, and then you can go and make the decisions on the cuts that you have to make. This is going to be tough, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Communication is the key. Without communication, we would be sitting here doing just what we're doing now. We have our faults also a part of this, because when it first started, when we as a board, when we got that first email, I don't know, some of my colleagues were in denial saying they weren't getting them or they weren't receiving them. I don't know, but I've gotten them, and I've spoken with you about them. We have got to, it's imperative that we value our people. And valuing them is not cutting 30% of their monies. Valuing them is not looking at their employee number and not knowing their name. Valuing them is not calling them into a room and we don't even know which group of people we are talking to. We have got to. I don't say much, but when I say it, I'm going to say it. We have got to let our people know, if you're sweeping the floor, if you are the superintendent, you are somebody. You matter to this district. We appreciate you. I told you, I'm going to stand with you when you're right. And I'm going to tell you when you're wrong, and I'm going to pray for you all the time. But we've got to do better about letting our people know. Don't judge me because of my number, my employee number, or because there's a cut needs to be made in this department, and these are the first 5. Because one of those you cut has wrote a grant for something that we need. Get to know people, not numbers. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Board members, at this time, I would like to submit this resolution asking Superintendent Fagan to pause any additional layoff and staff reductions until she share the personnel plan with the board and we approve the budget. This is what I'm recommending with this resolution. I mean, when I look out there, I just want to cry. when I think about people's salaries being cut $80,000 and $90,000, $40,000, $30,000, some of them perhaps were making too much. And as she tries to right-side this district, we're not saying we don't want change. What we are saying is, show us what the change is going to do. How will saving this money impact the academic performance of this district and our students? All we're asking is just to be brought along on this journey. How dare you send a deputy superintendent or regional superintendent, how dare you would send somebody back into the classroom as a teacher and they train the principals in the building? All I'm asking is that we show some respect, we do things decent and order, and we work with our superintendent, because we want to be partners in this work. We want to support our superintendent, but as an elected board, we must speak up when we need to speak up and do what is right by people. Yes, ma'am, I hear you. Absolutely, on behalf of 110,000 children that belong to Memphis-Shelby County School. Resolution directing the superintendent to present for approval an organization restructure detailed plan for the 24-25 proposed budget. Whereas the Shelby County Board of Education is ultimately responsible for approving the district budget and all personnel positions within the budget. And whereas the superintendent has broad discretion in making personnel decisions once the board approves a final budget, and whereas the superintendent has eliminated numerous positions and has proposed and implemented numerous demotions and layoffs to balance the 2024-2025 budget. Whereas the superintendent has notified numerous employees of these proposed personnel actions before the Shelby County Board has approved the budget. Whereas the Shelby County School Board, community members, and district employees have questions about how the proposed personnel actions relate to the big picture strategy of improving overall student outcome. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Shelby County School Board requests that the superintendent presents the board with a comprehensive revenue, complete personnel plan that describes how the proposed personnel actions will impact student achievement and the budget deficit, what if any gaps eliminated in the proposed positions will have on this district's operations, the plan to address the gap, and communication plan that explains the reason for cuts and clearly lay out next steps. And for those who have been a part and you feel like we have done something wrong or we didn't look at your education, we missed out on looking, we own that. And I trust that Superintendent Fagan will right-size this ship and get us on the right track so that we will be solid. Be it further resolved that the board requests that the superintendent pause on any additional layoffs, staff reductions until she shares a plan with this board. Submitted on this day of June 10th, 2024. Roll call vote. General Counsel?
I would like to sign my name to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Love.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would point out that I think the language of the resolution that you just read into the record is a little different from the language of the resolution that I have before me. And I just want to make sure that the language is consistent in what we're voting on here. I believe, well, and even before that, whereas the superintendent has recommended numerous changes, including eliminating positions, and has proposed and implemented numerous demotions and layoffs, I believe what I heard the chairwoman say was that she has actually implemented those. And I just want to make sure that we have the.
So, I had the wrong copy.
Okay.
But let me correct that last paragraph. Is that what you want me to correct?
It was actually I believe it was the third paragraph in addition to the last.
Read it on into the record. Because I'm lost where you asked me to read. You want me to go back to now, therefore be it resolved?
No. The third paragraph should read, whereas the superintendent has recommended numerous changes, including eliminating positions, and has proposed and implemented numerous demotions and layoffs to balance the 2024-2025 budget. And the last two.
Okay. So be it further resolved that the board requests that the superintendent pause on any additional layoffs of staff reductions until she shares the personnel plan with the board and the board approves the budget. Be it therefore further resolved to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of district operations, a clearly defined policy for organizational restructure and compensation shall be adopted by the board. This policy must require a plan to be presented to the board for approval and a minimum outline the criteria used for restructuring other available options for the restructure and the related fiscal impact. Yes, ma'am.
No, just saying submitted on June 11th. You said June 10th.
Excuse me, submitted on the board by June 11th. Thank you. Althea Green, board chair, and I think my colleagues will sign on or sign off. Amber here, Garcia, your light is on. Kevin Wood, Stephanie Love. Okay.
I think the general counsel had something.
Yes, sir.
Before.
Thank you. Just some clarification on the penultimate paragraph. To be clear, and to Commissioner Hewitt-Garcia's point about notice, that the requisite warrant notices will be going out. So that is a function that will move forward, this resolution notwithstanding. I just want to be clear on that point and make sure that that comports with your understanding.
I mean, should we clarify what that means?
He's waiting on you to answer questions.
I want to acknowledge, and I've shared with Dr. Fagans, a comprehensive list of all of my budget questions, and she has let me know that they are working on getting answers. I know my colleagues have all shared individual budget questions. We do have a community meeting at 5 o'clock on Thursday, so as we've highlighted, the budget sort of communication and presentation has been the focus. There are also going to be budget-specific questions, so I encourage you to bring those, and I encourage my colleagues, if you've not yet sent your budget questions as you dig into your budget books, to please do so, and then we also share those in a public forum as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent and Madam Chair. So first of all, board colleagues, I just want to remind us that we control personnel through our budget approval. I think Chief Langston indicated that, which is why I look forward, Mr. Langston, having you back in the gap with us, going deeply into the budget, having that conversation prior to going before the county. You, the superintendent, your team have answered dozens and dozens of questions. I want to put that on the record as well. We've asked deep questions regarding how do we get here, much of which, if my board members would not start to glaze over and I get in trouble, I would want to continue this conversation and ask out loud, and hopefully we can pick up this in the budget process before we approve that budget, which would be the true endorsement or non-endorsement of these recommendations. You know, one being whether or not the ILDs and assistant superintendent, if they were in your proposal in November, or did they come in April, and then when was that communicated? Some being offered teaching positions, some being offered assistant principal position. How we norm that, what was the rationale, justification for that? Again, playing that out in the frequently asked questions, or at least making sure those impacted employees know those answers. More important to me, quite honestly, that they know how you got there, right, Superintendent? And then questions around, I think Ms. Garcia indicated around hold harmless, particularly for teachers, for those who, right, said, hey, I'm going to go back into the fire, I'm ready to go back to teaching. And you say, yeah, but it doesn't start to July. And you know and I think, Superintendent, you have clearly communicated that, right, at least to us, but I want to again say out loud to them, and I think again, as we continue to challenge you, your video, while we talked about the communication, I think that video really hit a number of the marks, informing teachers that, hey, you're not going to lose any benefits. Your health care isn't going to go away. You're not going to have to file for unemployment if you're taking a classroom position. But again, I still want to continue to ask those questions, again, dozens of questions. As we get those answers back, board members, remember, we want to see a rationale. I think the superintendent have articulated her vision and the justification, but the questions around, will there be gaps in delivery? You know, we can want to push everybody back in the classroom, but when you call central office, as you indicated, superintendent, you still want somebody answering the phone. When you got a truancy issue, you walk in the building, you want somebody to welcome you at their front desk and say, thank you for choosing MSCS, right? And so we want to make sure we still got people who want to be in central office, and that it is a pathway for when you give it all you can to students in the classroom. You say, you know what, I still care about kids. I want to go over there and see what they're doing over there where Superintendent Fagan is, and maybe still be able to earn a decent living, right? So I just want to continue to make sure what this is signaling, Superintendent, is that until we approve the budget, we'll keep asking the questions, and we'll keep pushing you to say this makes sense. And I think what you'll see is alignment. What is okay to say, and I tell my colleagues this all the time, it's okay to look at people and say, you know what, I didn't get it right. It's okay to say, you know what, we need a mulligan on this, and we're gonna do something different. The superintendent acknowledging the fact that impacted employees should get some type of severance if they choose not to stay with the district. Those are all signals that we're listening to one another, superintendent, that we want to get this right and that we want to approve your budget. So with that, I yield my time.
I have a question. Is it right for the employee to be demoted and you don't explain to him or her the reason for the demotion? Is it right?
No, it is not right, and I know what you're speaking of in general, and so certainly conversation to be held there with the delivery of the individual who delivered it. I think in terms of overall, when we think about the initial conversations that were held, I did not have them, and I own that, and I went and had them individually and as a group to explain, and many of those individuals, as they stayed behind and asked questions of me individually, they left feeling whole. They had some different opportunities to get something closer to home. They had opportunities to say, hey, can you take a deeper look at my pay? But that also speaks to Commissioner Love. So thank you for asking the question and just being very clear that I'm not a superintendent that is a retaliatory leader. My email is open, my phone is open, my office is open, and folks who have really figured that out have been there. They have emailed, and they start their emails with, I hope I don't get in trouble. So I understand that I'm competing against a culture like that, and it'll take some time. I generally learned during the retreat when you all lifted to me that individuals were read something and told they couldn't ask questions, or however it took place, I wasn't there. And so from that, I've had to go and walk and do some things and own some things, and I'll continue to own those things, including reviewing the salary line by line and taking a look and ensuring that the type of experience that I'm communicating with the team is actually being accounted for. I'll take a look at the positions, as many of the individuals say, hey, I know my title doesn't say this, but this is what I do, and then I realize, oh, we need that position. And so this is not just one way forward, it is an open door. I still own it all in terms of how we got here, although what was presented to me, it was before I got here. As superintendent, I think that's what you do. And I also take the body shots for the leaders as well as we move forward. So committed to you individually in terms of what communication will look like. I've communicated with individual board commissioners as well as what that will look like. And I communicate to the public about what transparency and communication will look like. That email was not accidental. It is transparent, and it was meant to be sent district-wide because this impacts everyone, no matter what position that it is. And so while I'm confident in the decisions that are being made and readily prepared to provide the plan that you're requesting that we've generally spoken about individually, I'm still confident of what's being placed forth.
Thank you.
Superintendent, I'm sorry, I know she asked your question. Can we also get clarity on next step for budget approval, just out loud, as I know this will trigger any of these budgetary impacts. So just want to make sure I hear out loud.
Yeah.
So Great question, Commissioner Wood. So just got a text from a former commissioner, Clay Bibbs, who's the chairman of the county, wondering if y'all was going to approve the budget tonight. So I told her that we're getting grilled here. So the county is deliberating on their budget tomorrow. They they want to vote on their budget on Monday. I'll be better prepared to tell you after tomorrow what it looks like because they have a $40 million gap as well.
Go ahead, Superintendent. My question kind of dovetails with that in terms of this resolution, but before I sign on to it, I want to know just from your perspective of the impact if we were to support this resolution, and also to help us understand your urgency of now in terms of why you felt that these changes were needed right now as opposed to 6 months from now. If you could speak to that, please.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So right now versus 6 months from now, or generally just can you wait a year from now? When we think about $96 million in need for our facilities, that can't wait 6 months, that's now. When we think about soft costs that we've taken out of a plan that we generally don't have the funds to put forth for 2 new buildings that folks want us to get out, regardless of what is at stake and where we stand, we have to, that's now, earmarking that in the budget. When we think about or talk about kids and what does not exist in the buildings right now, from the basics of textbooks and general materials to the elevated needs of being able to perform a lab correctly in biology with the things that you have. That's now. That can't wait 6 months from now. When we think about the services that the CFO lifted, we have craftsmen and we don't have enough of them. We have nutrition services that have to continue, and they were quitting probably within the hours that we've been here because they don't get paid enough. And so those things are left to be built into the budget and give us the room that we need to think about the people that you are emphasizing to me to think about. I am thinking about them, right, and thinking about them daily. I think that also to your question about why not 6 months from now and why now, is because we've been waiting 6 months from now long before I arrived here. And so when I arrived, I said next is now. And so to get to the next, it is solely dependent on what we do now, and now is urgent. Yesterday was urgent. February 9th when you named me, when you placed me on the table, it was urgent then. December 20th when I interviewed as a candidate, it was urgent then. March 9th when I submitted last year of 2023, it was urgent to me then. April 5th on my birthday last year when I learned I was not a finalist, I didn't make the top 5 first round, it was urgent for me then. So a year later, it is absolutely urgent, and it is unconscionable for us to think that it is not, when every child that I have met, laid my eyes on, their families, the leaders who serve them, and even the folks in this room who are clapping, they have shared that next is now. And so the urgency is now. This resolution says that I'm not doing my job. It says that I have not given the credence, the due diligence, the fidelity to a process to analyze what is necessary to make the types of decisions that we are bringing. The privilege and the opportunity and the honor to serve this space and to do this work with you is not lost on me, and it is never light. I am excited to do this work. I am taking this with pride to bring before you the hardest decisions that have not been made in previous years before me. And so I'm honored that you embrace the opportunity to show up in black and voice your concerns. I'm honored that you said, hey, this is important enough to fill this room. I'm honored that the people who are tuned in online in waves since we've started, since you all made the decision by choice or force to bring me here, I take this serious. You could take the $325K from me today and I'll show up tomorrow. Next is now.
Thank you, Superintendent. So I appreciate that very passionate response. And so this is what I have to say to my colleagues. We constantly talk about change and wanting things to be better for our children. And I've been there too. I think we all have experienced this where we've been let go. I have been let go from a job. Had nothing to do with my ability, my skill set, but it's what the business decision that was made. And so when we talk about children and helping our children, when we have so many who are so far behind, it's really disheartening that the bulk of our conversation has been talking about adults. And it's just like, let's just refocus on what we're supposed to be focusing upon. I think one of our principals came here and said, you know, the focus, keep the main thing the main thing. Whereas I understand, but I also understand the intent of Dr. Fagans when she has consistently said, just from my perspective, and I didn't know her from anybody, what we needed to do to get this job done. And I think that's why she appealed to me, was that fresh outside perspective, because so many of us, we have been here our entire lives. And so it's just that why there's aspects of this resolution I absolutely understand and respect and agree with, but I'm also focused on the fact that I want to focus on what's best for children. And I hate the fact that some are going to be negatively impacted, but that happens in every industry on the face of the earth when change is needed. People unfortunately lose their jobs, some of them. People unfortunately, take a demotion. And I say this from firsthand experience. It has happened to me. But we are here to focus on what's best for children. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Dr. Fagans.
Before we vote, Madam Chair, may I? All right, so Superintendent, I do think, I think we're sending a false narrative if you read this resolution that somehow this board saying a week from now we're going to be approving a budget and saying to you, if you don't send another notice for 7 days, for 5 business days, that this board has somehow don't believe in your work. I don't know how many times we can say it in how many different languages that we have to cut central office. These cuts must be made, but the questions are continue to come. There are likely notifications going out as we speak. There are likely notifications that will go out when we walk out the door. If you say that, hey, we must continue to notify people based on where we are, and we can't wait 5 days to do so, based on General Counsel's indication that these warn notices must notify these impacted employees. But I don't think that it signals that we are abandoning this important work of right-sizing the district. It says to this audience that, listen, we took our time to make sure the teachers got pay raises. We listened to you all. We made sure that the superintendent, this board, when it approves that budget, will also approve the teacher pay raises and benefits. I think anybody who's sitting in central office, we can listen to them as well. Don't be divided out there, guys. Don't let us divide you. You guys are a team. Central office support the classrooms. Central office wouldn't exist if it wasn't for great teachers. Can you all applaud to that? Can you all applaud to the fact that you are a committed team, that people like Dr. Richmond, I keep acknowledging him, started off as a school teacher, the number of people like Dr. Whitelaw that brought up the ranks, the number of folks that I see applauding them saying, you know what, I wouldn't be in education if it wasn't for these guys. It's okay to grow your profession. You don't have to be divided back there. You don't have to just say it's us versus them. It's okay. You're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. And guess what? We're going to keep asking tough questions, because when we approve that budget and we save jobs and we push more dollars to classroom, you know the best thing about being a board member is that you get to probably piss off everybody by creating compromises. And I'm okay with that. And I'm going to keep asking tough questions. And I'm going to support this resolution because, to me, my interpretation is that we're simply asking you to keep answering hard questions for the next week. And I think we can do that collectively. Superintendent, I appreciate your bold leadership. I appreciate it's a level of energy that we haven't seen in a long time. But if you decide to do this hard work for 3 years and go off to another district, Memphis is still home to me. Memphis, I still got to go to the same Memphis barbershop. I still got to go see the same Memphis friends. I still get reminded by the same Memphis folks who said that we abandoned other great leaders who should be sitting in these seats. Right? We believe in you. We want to support you. And that's why, to Board Member Williams' point, bring us along for the journey. We can box for you much better if we know who's standing in front of us. So I appreciate what you're doing, Superintendent, but I think we're going to get this right. And it may lead to no changes at all. But I want to stand by my colleagues and say that this resolution that's calling for us to pause, continue to communicate, is one that I can support.
Thank you.
Yeah. two things. One comment on that, and then a question for the general counsel. So I want to be very clear. Like, I support your work, Dr. Figgins. I stand behind you. What we need is a plan with clarity. Pretty much what you have done today, what Mr. Langston did today, I think that's what I needed before, right? So now that I have it, I feel way more comfortable. Now we have to put this together and move forward. And the decisions might still be the same decisions that you made last week. But to that end, if we delay this, where does that put us on notices to employees legally? I mean, because one thing this resolution doesn't have, it doesn't have a date. It doesn't say by when do you have to submit this plan, and is this by next week? Is this by work session? And where does that put us with notifications to employees if we decide to move forward with layoffs?
Good question. And to Commissioner Woods, and I think some of the other commissioners have voiced, it's never too early or too few times to put notice for it. So I don't think it impacts it at all. I think the notices still go out just out of an abundance of caution and in fairness to give people a heads up and a good amount of time. I don't think it impacts it at all.
So are you saying that notices will still go out?
Yes.
And will say you may lose your job, or you are going to lose your job, or what are they going to say?
So the Warren Act, if you read the act, it goes on about how it's good business practice and essentially just the humane thing to do to send out notice as early as possible, even if the circumstances may not come to pass. So yes, the notices will go out. And our officers are prepared to get those ready for distribution.
All right, so I wanted to have that on the record because people are going to get confused that say like, hey, well, Mr. Mr. Williams, let me finish. So where we have to say, because I don't want people here to leave thinking that something happened and didn't happen or vice versa. So we have to align this with the budget deadline for the county. We have to align with this with warnings and with this resolution. So we just need to be crystal clear with the message.
Yeah, so let me try to clarify. In the event that there is the potential for mass layoffs, which this would qualify as, there is statutory requirement that notice goes out. Not necessarily, and there's some detailed information about what has to go in there, the address of the site, location, the positions that are being eliminated, that kind of stuff. Just for general awareness and notice, and those will go out. Now, it won't. It will not specify what at this point exactly which positions are being eliminated, but it will give general notice that mass layoffs are anticipated.
Thank you.
Can I?
Just a general ask of the chair for clarity. So initial letters went out, and I think I shared this in small group sessions and individual conversations with those who were able to attend at the TLA last week. Those are still under review as well. Everything is always under review. If you want me to continue to be transparent, you could get your letter rescinded if I get to it and I see that something's off. And so I just want to just share, nothing is final until it's final. But those first round of letters that went out, I'll be honest, there were some 200 or plus positions added without my name, in my name in terms of the letter, without my review or approval. And so I understand that not everybody's for me, and that's okay. And so I will take a look at those myself. And so if you receive some communication either directly from me or otherwise, then just know that I've gotten to it and I've taken a look at it. I'm not afraid to own where we need to do better and where we can get it right. And I also own that we have a large leadership capacity in terms terms of building staff and leadership of an immediate senior team, but across the board. And many of you have asked for that, for the same. And so email me. I do see all of the emails coming through, those of you watching online and in general. And so I appreciate that. When I say you can email me and I will respond, it may not be today, but I do respond to each email, and I read my own emails. No one reads them for me. So if you have a general concern, just like many of you have reached out and we made it work for you, then please do that. Is that?
Thank you. Mr. Tito, could you give me a roll call vote?
Commissioner McKissick.
Yes.
Commissioner Huey Garcia.
I still have a question. I don't know. I mean, we started voting, but I think is it too late for that? Sorry.
Can you undo the?
We're voting on the resolution. I'm sorry. He said once voting is started, according to the parliamentarian, we can't.
Present.
Okay.
Commissioner Woods.
Yes.
Commissioner Love.
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Commissioner Calvo.
Pass.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, that's a yes. Board Chair Green.
Yes.
Let the record reflect my vote change to yes.
You have.
No, you have a pass.
You have a pass.
You have a pass, you need to go back to that
Oh,
person.
sorry. Commissioner Calvo.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present means you don't have to, you're not voting. Yes.
Yes. You have 8 votes in the affirmative. The motion passes.
And one in the negative.
And 1 in the negative. The motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. That motion passes. Board Member Woods.
Now, if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to be very clear and on the record that I absolutely support Dr. Fagan's in her decision on personnel. That is not the role of the board. I do understand this resolution, and I wanted to just support the heart of it in terms of just saying officially as a board, we are all looking at all of the concerns. Dr. Fagans has expressed that, and I really struggled with that vote, but want to officially go on record that you still absolutely have my support.
The same, I turned my light on for that very reason. Chair Green, look, you brought forth a resolution. You know, part of the work we have to do as a board is not only show support of the superintendent, but show that collective leadership when the community's listening. And I think what we want to simply signal, what your goal was, is that the superintendent could have simply said on the record that I will pause any changes until we vote on the budget, and it would have not needed the resolution. And I would have been just as fine with that. But the resolution is here. I don't think it changes. The superintendent has been clear that she's going to do the things that this board has asked. We have 1 employee.
That's right.
And so while the superintendent may be willing to show up for free, the only way the superintendent shows up is to carry out the will and the work of this district and what the board sets aside, which is to continue to push those dollars to the classroom. Superintendent, continue along that path. Please continue to do so with grace, and you have our support there.
You have my support too. Communication is the key.
This meeting is now adjourned. Have a great evening.